Okay, so good evening once again and Happy New Year. Today we're talking about the five faculties, and like mentioned in the poster, these five faculties are essential because these are like the gauge. Normally, you want to know whether you are suitable for practice or you need to increase, or rather, which aspect of your faculties you need to increase to sort of improve in your spiritual growth. So these five faculties, where does it come from? So there's this particular scripture where the Buddha mentions the five faculties. So I'll just briefly read through from the screen, and then you can, or rather, I'll explain later. Amongst there are these five faculties. Which five? The faculty of conviction. Okay, so this is Ajahn Thanisaro's translation. So there are other terms, things like faith, things like belief, or confidence. So the Pali word is saddha. So that's the first faculty. The faculty of persistence. So you have things like or effort or energy, depending on who translate. Then the third one is called faculty of mindfulness, and the faculty of concentration, and the faculty of discernment. So the last one could be wisdom, discernment or wisdom. So these are the five faculties. And how does the Buddha came up with these five qualities? Where does he take it from? Right. So the first faculty. Now, where is the faculty of conviction to be seen? Right. So, which part of his teaching can you find this faculty of faith? Normally, Buddhism is like supposed like very rational, very uh, logical kind of religion. But does faith play a part in liberation? Does faith play a part in liberation? Right. So the Buddha mentioned it is found in the four factors of stream entry. So if a person need to realize the truth, they need to have faith. That's the first kind of criteria, the first step to practice, and also the first step of awakening. Right. So stream entry is actually a stage of enlightenment. So in our chant earlier, we talk about the it's all in Pali, right? So later we'll kind of cover that. Okay, so the second point, and where is the faculty of persistence to be seen? In the four right exertions. So these exertions is the four right efforts found in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so the point 2, 3, 4, and 5 is basically found in the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah. So right exertion is the basically right effort. So I'll explain a bit later. And the third one, and where is the faculty of mindfulness to be seen? It is found in the four frames of reference. Again, it's Ajahn Thanisaro's translation. The more common term would be four foundations of mindfulness. And the fourth one, and where is the faculty of concentration to be seen? In the four jhanas. So basically, that's the right concentration in the Noble Eightfold Path. And where is the faculty of discernment to be seen? In the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so Four Noble Truths is the core and the foundation of Buddhism. So to kind of briefly go through in case those who are new. First noble truth, there's this noble truth of suffering. So we talk about why do we feel stress, why do we feel pain and sorrow. It's because of the five clinging aggregates. And because there's the five clinging aggregates, we experience the whole world, whatever we see, hear, smell, think, taste, and touch. Then we'll experience birth, aging, sickness, death. We'll experience separation from loved ones. We'll experience associating people that we do not like. We'll kind of experience not getting what we want, right? So that is basically the gist of these 5 clinging aggregates. Using the 5 clinging aggregates, we perceive the whole world, right? And what is these 5 aggregates? Right, the first aggregate is called form. Second aggregate called feeling. Third aggregate called perception. Fourth aggregate called mental formations. And the fifth aggregate is called consciousness. So for example, if you're looking at the screen right now, the screen has a shape, right? Has a shape, has something hard, something tangible. So we call it the 4 elements. So the 4 elements are defined as the earth, fire, wind, and water elements. Earth, fire, wind, water elements. So that constitute form. So earth element represents anything hard that you can feel, hard, soft kind of properties. And the fire element would be the temperature, any hot and cold, your device generating heat or the weather is cold. So all these are fire element. And the wind element is basically movement, any kinds of movement, any kind of vibrations. So it may probably at the atomic or subatomic level, there should be some kind of vibrations. And the fourth element is water. So water basically is moisture, humid or dry. So there's lots of rain now. So not very humid kind of conditions. So these are the 4 elements, right? And the next aggregate is called feeling. Feeling, whether you find it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So commonly the 3 kinds of feelings. And the third aggregate is called perception. Perception. All the memories you have, all the past experiences you have, and you try to make sense of the current stimuli, the current object you perceive, and we call it perception, right? So you call this the Buddha's hand, what kind of image it is, what kind of word is this. So you're using perception. You try to make sense using your past memories. Yeah? So that's called the third aggregate, perception. And the fourth aggregate is called mental formation. Every time you generate a thought, that is called mental formation. And the fifth aggregate is called consciousness. Consciousness is basically your attention or your awareness. So if you're looking at the screen, you're using your eye consciousness. If you're hearing what I'm saying, then you're using your ear consciousness. So basically, we have the 6 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So in the Western science, you have 5 senses. Western science have 5 senses, but in Buddhism, you have the 6. So the 6th sense refers to your thinking. Whatever you imagine, whatever you kind of recall in the past, that would be the 6th sense. Not the Western kind of 6th sense. The 6th sense, they think of ESP, right? Extra sensory perception. But no, in our 6th sense would be whatever comes up in our mind, whatever worry, whatever we want to imagine. So that is the 6th sense door. So we have 6 kinds of sense doors, our 6 kind of sense organs. So for example, how does these 5 clinging aggregates work? When we, using the same screen, for example, when we look at the image of the screen, there's the form aggregate, right? The screen has certain shapes or certain elements to it. And there's also feeling, whether you like, dislike, or find it neutral. You like the design, don't like the design, you like the words, don't like the words, you like the colors, don't like the colors. So these are the 3 kinds of feelings. And the next one is perception. Same thing, the same object that you look, you give it a name. What do you call this? What kind of picture is this? Now, what kind of color? So all this is called perception. And the fourth aggregate is every time you generate a thought to try to make sense of what you're seeing, you generate a thought, there's a mental formation, that's the fourth aggregate. And the fifth aggregate, you're using your eyes to see, so you're using your eye consciousness. So this is how these five clinging aggregates work. So it works with your ears. If you're hearing what I'm saying, same thing. The sound that hit your ears, four elements, vibration, the eardrums. You may like what you hear, you don't like what you hear, find it neutral, that's feelings. And a perception, whatever words I'm saying, trying to make sense, is English, Chinese, what word in the vocabulary. So that is perception. And you have mental formation. You need to think, right? You need to perceive the words. You need to think. And the fifth aggregate is your attention. So your attention is to the sound, next attention to thinking. Yes, the talk is going according to the slide. That's the question, right? Yes, it's going according to the slide because I'm trying to explain the Four Noble Truths before trying to make sense of the other faculties for those who are new. Or maybe if you look at the participants, any participants are totally new to Buddhism. No, nobody. All are veterans already, so I can bypass explaining. Okay, so that's the first noble truth. Second noble truth is the cause of suffering. Yeah, cause of suffering is basically our greed, anger, delusion, any kind of excessive or unrealistic kind of craving, then we'll suffer. So making use of the five aggregates that perceive things, we have certain expectation. I want maybe more slides to explain the Four Noble Truths. Maybe have this expectation. Then doesn't appear, right? Then you get a bit, hey, how come don't have this screen? Then you get a bit upset. So that's one example. So there's a case scenario. So that is expectation that cause suffering. And the third noble truth is that suffering can be overcome. Craving can be ceased. Suffering can be ceased. And the fourth noble truth talks about a solution. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path is where these few other faculties come into play. So starting from the 1 to 8, what are these Noble Eightfold Path? You have right understanding or right view, which is covered in the fifth faculty. That's the wisdom portion. Then you need to have right thought. Right thought is basically any thought of non-greed, non-anger, and non-delusion. So that is to overcome the cause of suffering, which is the second noble truth. We talk about greed and anger and delusion. So, and when a person has right thought, a person thinks of, generosity, thinks of compassion, thinks of loving kindness, then it will constitute right thought, reduce greed and anger. So that is the first two kind of the Eightfold Path, and that constitutes wisdom. Yeah, constitute wisdom. And you have three more: right speech, right action, right livelihood. So these five constitute like your moral behavior. So earlier on in our chanting, we chanted like the five precepts for those who are chanting, observing the five precepts. So that constitute the moral kind of behavior, moral kind of discipline, moral kind of training. So that's the five. And the last three is actually in this one. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So these are the Noble Eightfold Path. So right effort is point number 2, right mindfulness, point number 3, and right concentration, point number 4 in the five faculties. So that's how it comes into play. That's the relationship of these five faculties. So interestingly, in the Noble Eightfold Path, there's no mention of faith. There's no mention of these conviction, no mention of faith. Right? So although it's outside the Noble Eightfold Path, which is a solution to end suffering, but it's included here because that's the first and necessary step to take action. When a person has faith, then they'll listen, they'll bother to learn or try to find out what's the teaching about. So that's the kind of first faculty. So having given this kind of short explanation, let's move on to the next slide. Lots of people are looking forward to the next slide. Okay, so there is another kind of categorization called the 37 factors of enlightenment. So it gets more and more complicated. So we give a lot of numbers. So the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 37 factors enlightenment, and these 5 qualities, then a lot of numbers. So this is not numbers for your Toto or 4D. This is Buddhist teachings in different classification. Okay, so on the left column, the very, very first column talks about the 5 qualities. So here is the more common translation. So the first one, you have faith. Second, you have energy. Third, you have mindfulness. Fourth, you have concentration. And fifth, you have wisdom. Okay, so let's go through the 7 sets of qualities kind of in order. So these 7 sets are normally mentioned in some of the suttas, but in the suttas, the Buddha won't mention as the 37 factors of enlightenment. The Buddha will mention 4 frames of reference, 4 right exertions, 4 bases of power, 5 faculties, 5 powers, 7 bojjhanga, and the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Buddha will mention all these things, but the Buddha never give this term, 37 factors of enlightenment. So these 37 factors of enlightenment is given by commentators. So just for your info only. Okay, so anyway, these 4 frames of reference comes from these 4 satipatthana, which is the 4 foundation of mindfulness, found in the Noble Eightfold Path, like we mentioned. And these 4 right exertions come from these 4 samma padana. Yeah, these 4 right efforts. And the 4 bases of power, interestingly, is not in the Noble Eightfold Path. 4 bases of power. Okay, so these 4 bases of power is actually, there's another term for it called 4 bases of psychic power, basically. You need 4 kinds of attributes, 4 kinds of qualities to develop psychic abilities. So this is the 4 bases of psychic power. So you have this chanda, first one. Chanda means desire. That's the first basis of power. And the second one is virya. Virya means energy, which is mentioned here in the 5 qualities. So the 4 bases of power cover virya, this energy. Then the third base of psychic power is chittang, means you put your mind into what you're doing. There's an English phrase for it. Put your heart and soul. Put your heart and soul into what you're doing. And the fourth one, this vimamsa. So it's mentioned here in the last column. So it's not wisdom. Interestingly, it's called vimamsa. Vimamsa, if a person wants to sort of develop psychic power, they need to have vimamsa, means discernment, differentiation. Because if not, some people see some images and they have certain abilities to perceive some images. If they do not have discernment, they can go crazy. They cannot differentiate reality versus what's projected in the mind, what is their divine ability, and so on. If they cannot differentiate, they can get into trouble. So there was one yogi. I just completed a retreat end of last year. In fact, I just came back to Singapore a few days ago. There's this yogi in the retreat. He mentioned he was like staring into candlelight. So that's his practice. So usually visualization practices lead to this kind of abilities. So he was so engrossed, whatever he perceived, the images will kind of remain there. So he mentioned when he was driving, he stared at the red traffic light, and the image is there. Then when the traffic light turn, he cannot differentiate, what is staying in the mind versus what is happening right now. So he say almost got in the accident. So it can be very dangerous. So not suitable for everybody, even though it is an official kind of meditation practice to visualize light and stuff like that. It's official practice, but not suitable for everybody. Huh? So normally in my meditation routine, it's not really emphasized or not heavily emphasized. So there's like not much visualization except for the contemplation on the body part. So that's like very minimal, very fast. Some people contemplate on the body, but they want to develop psychic power. So they stare at the skeleton for very long or visualize at the part of the body very long in order to develop this divine eye. They want to see past life or see ghosts or see heavenly beings. So that's what they're doing. But the idea of this reflection is to learn to let go of the body, not to stare very long and develop X-ray vision and stuff like that. So of course there are people who can do it, but probably a small amount. Again, it's not meant for everybody. Can be very traumatizing. Can be traumatizing for some individuals. But it's mentioned here as the 7 factors of awakening. So probably in future sessions, then we'll talk about whether is psychic power essential for enlightenment. Okay, then the next one. This is our topic for today. 5 faculties. They have all the Pali words there: Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, and Panya. So these are the Pali words for the 5 faculties. And the next one, you have the same thing: 5 powers. Basically, copy and paste. Repetition. Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. So same thing. So it's a bit like pointless. Okay, but even though they're the same, normally 5 faculties can be used in a slightly different context, a wider context, probably individual or personalized level. Like normally a person have strong faculties or a person have weak faculties. So it's used in that context. Whereas the 5 powers is more like an objective, kind of like a benchmark or ideal. So these are some of the slight variations in uses, but generally they are about the same. They can be used in the same, more or less the same kind of meaning. Okay, then we have the 7 Bojjhanga factors. So Bojjhanga means 7 factors of enlightenment. So you have 7 factors of enlightenment, and you also have these bigger 37 factors of enlightenment. So very confusing which one to follow, right? Okay, so these 7 factors of enlightenment appear in the right mindfulness, in the 4th foundation of mindfulness under the Dhamma. So the 7 factors of awakening, you have, let me see if I can recall. You have mindfulness, that's the first factor. Investigation of the Dhamma, and that's the second factor. Then the third factor is virya, which is mentioned here in these 5 qualities. That's the third factor of enlightenment. 4th factor, you have piti. We call this joy, Dhamma, joy. That's the 4th factor. The 5th factor is called tranquility, pasadi. Then the 6th factor is samadhi, which is this concentration. And the 7th factor is called equanimity. That's the 7th factor. So interestingly, according to the 5 qualities classification, investigation of Dhamma is classified under wisdom, Dhamma Vichaya. So that's the second factor of enlightenment. So the first factor is mentioned as sati. Right? So these are the 7 factors. And again, the samadhi mentioned here in the 7 factors enlightenment is not the same as the samadhi mentioned in the other classifications. So we'll talk more in future lesson. And the last classification, Noble Eightfold Path, which I kind of mentioned before. So you have this Samma Vayama, which is the Pali term for this right effort. Sammasati, right mindfulness. and Samma Samadhi, right? Concentration. So this Samma Vayama all the way to Samma Samadhi, that's the kind of mental training for to develop concentration. And you have the last one, Samadhi. Samadhi is the first of the Noble Eightfold Path, sometimes defined as the first, or it can be classified as the last, depending on how you want to classify it, because the Noble Eightfold Path is normally depicted as a wheel. It's round. So a person can start off with the precepts first. They have no understanding of Buddhism. So let's say the parent bring the child to the temple, and they tell you, hey, don't kill, don't steal, don't do this, don't do that. So they may start off with the precepts first. So they start off with the something else instead of right understanding. Or maybe some people are introduced to Buddhism through the academic route. So they read some Dhamma books or listen to some Dhamma talks. So they have some right understanding. So they start off with right understanding first, which is this Samadhi. So because it's classified as a wheel, anybody can start off at any point, any part of the Noble Eightfold Path. But because it is a wheel, it kinds of affect each other. A person cannot say, I want to have peace of mind. Let's say I want to practice right mindfulness and right concentration, Samma Sati and Samma Samadhi, but I'm very lazy. I don't want to put in effort. I just want to maybe listen a bit of this Dhamma talk, then later go back to square one, go and party, and don't follow the precepts. I want to drink my alcohol. I want to drink my beer and party, and curse and swear and gossip and whatever, right? So if a person want to do all this, then so sorry, you cannot achieve any depth in the progress. You may scratch the surface, theoretical understanding of Buddhism, but not sort of spiritual or experiential kind of understanding. So there are different depths. So depending on how much you practice or how many of the factors you practice properly, then you can go further into the path. Okay, next slide. Wait, any questions so far? At any point of time, do feel free to raise your hand or raise your digital hand, then we can take these questions. If not, I keep moving on, then a lot of jargons, a lot of terms you don't understand. Then after the end of 2 hours, sorry, I don't understand, then you'll be wasting your time, right? So it's better to clear it now, so as we move on, then you can understand.
Okay, Bhante, there's one question here. What is the 7 Bodhi points?
Okay, well, let's move to the previous slide.
Previous slide. Okay, this one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that is the 7 Bojjhanga factors, the last second factor, last second column. So the 7 enlightenment factors is actually these 7 Bojjhanga factors. Is that what you want to ask?
CGG, is that what you want to ask?
Oh, what's the details? Okay, so the 7 factors, the first one, you have mindfulness. Okay, so that is basically a trigger. 7 factors of enlightenment is actually the gateway of awakening. So if a person want to truly know, they have sort of experienced the Dhamma, truly experienced the Dhamma, they will have to go through these 7 factors of awakening. So it's like inner kind of transformation, real transformation. So if a person just pay respect or do chanting or just read some Dhamma books, but if they never experience these 7 factors of awakening, that means they haven't realized the Dhamma yet. So there are different stages of realization, but these 7 factors are the kind of like it's mentioned in the last discourse of the Buddha, this Mahaparinibbana Sutta. And Venerable Sariputta mentioned these 7 factors of awakening is the gateway. That's the only door to achieve the path. So a person can practice many kinds of meditation objects, or rather, there are many kinds of practices around. Some do breathing meditation, some chant the Buddha's name, some do some other kind of mantras. Whatever practice you do, if it converges at these 7 factors of awakening, that means you're on the right track. If it kind of diverge far away and you don't experience any Dhamma joy, you don't experience any peace, then I'm so sorry. And then you're probably practicing something not correct, or your understanding of the practice is not correct. So that is the kind of benchmark. So does it answer your question? Okay, all right. Okay, then let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so you see earlier on the table, there's 5 powers and 5 faculties. So according to the scripture, according to the Buddha, those 2 are the same. Those 2 are the same. So basically, you don't have to memorize these 37 factors of enlightenment. These are basically, I won't say redundant. Everything stems from the Noble Eightfold Path. Most of it stems from the Noble Eightfold Path. So these 5 faculties, why is it the same as the 5 powers? I'll just read through. There's a manner of reckoning whereby the 5 faculties are the same as 5 strengths. Whatever is the faculty of conviction, there is a strength of conviction. So on and so forth. Whatever is the strength of conviction is the faculty of conviction. Right? So you have the 5 faculties column and the 5 powers column. So they're talking about the first quality, which is the faith quality. It can be used both ways. And likewise for this persistence, mindfulness, concentration, discernment. So the Buddha gives an example. Imagine a river. Imagine a river flowing, sloping, inclining towards the east, in whose, I can't read the word, it's blocked by the image, but then you can read yourself. There's an island in a manner of reckoning whereby the river is classified as one side, another manner of reckoning whereby it is classified as 2. Okay, so if a river flows and splits into 2, basically it's the same river. Yeah, you cannot say, how do you call it? It's from the same source, right? That's the meaning. So another example the Buddha gave. If there is an island, the water body on the left side of the island, on the east side of the island, and on the west side of the island is the same water body, right? So that's the kind of example that the Buddha gave. All right. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is basically the definition. So how do you know a person has faith? Faith in the Buddha or the Triple Gems. Okay, so this is the short version. So later on, I may go through the longer version. Okay, so it's found in this Vibhanga, Indriya Vibhanga Sutta. So normally the Vibhanga is more like the standard definition. So I just read through. Now, what is the faculty of conviction? There's a case where a monk, a disciple of the noble ones, has conviction, is convinced of the Tathagata's awakening. So Tathagata is another term used for the Buddha. So Tathagata means in Theravada translation, one thus gone. One thus gone. In Mahayana translation, it's called one thus come. Chinese called Ru Lai, one thus come. So Theravada is one thus gone. So one come and one go, right? So different kind of perspective, but doesn't matter. So the first quality, right? Indeed, the Blessed One is worthy and rightly self-awakened. So normally in the chant we did earlier, we have the 9 qualities of the Buddha. So the first quality is Arahant. The Buddha is an Arahant, is a worthy one. So I explain it later in the later slide. Why is the Buddha worthy? Because the Buddha is enlightened. Whatever gifts they receive is not used out of greed. It's not used for wrong reasons. Right? So whatever food or gifts that an awakened person receives, it is the benefit of everybody. So it's very meritorious. So that's why the Buddha is a worthy one. And Arahant, of course, there are many explanations why it's an Arahant. Arahant is a being who is free from all kinds of defilements, liberated. Then the second quality, Samma Sambuddha, rightly self-awakened. Self-awakened. So the term here is self-awakened. So Arahant or any Buddha's disciple, if they have reached enlightenment, cannot be considered as self-awakened Buddha. It's different. All right. So there are three kinds of enlightenment. First kind of enlightenment is called Samma Sambuddha, which is this quality of the Buddha. That means Supreme Buddha. Supreme Buddha. Then there's another kind of enlightenment called Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka Buddha means silent Buddha. Silent Buddha means, I'll explain later. And then the third kind would be Arahant. Some new commentarial term, they call it Sawaka Buddha or hearer Buddhas. So there are three kinds of Buddhas. So which option do you all choose? So I always make this joke. Theravada Buddhism normally aim for the third one, the Sawaka Buddha or the Arahant, because we are the Kyasi Buddhists. We don't want to die so many times. So we want to get quickly liberated. So this is the Theravada kind of standpoint usually. And for Mahayana Buddhists, I believe a lot of people here are Mahayana Buddhists. So I will say Mahayana Buddhists are the Kyasu Buddhists. They are aiming for the first one usually, aim for the Samma Sambuddha. Samma Sambuddha. So Samma Sambuddha is not easy to be like a perfect Buddha, and it may require many lifetimes, many eons of lifetimes. So it's not easy. But you need to perfect everything, right? Probably beyond the 37 that we've gone through earlier. There's more things they have to go through. So many lifetimes. So we call them the Kyasu Buddhists. But anyway, a Samma Sambuddha is a being who have to rediscover the truth by themselves, rediscover the path of awakening. That means at that point of time in his current era, nobody else know how to reach enlightenment. Nobody else. So he's the first person who have to rediscover the truth. That's why it's called rightly self-awakened. Not only that, he must be able to teach, able to start his own religion. Right? So that's what our historical Buddha did. So that's the defining qualities of a Samma Sambuddha. That means he's enlightened by himself and able to teach, able to start like a religion, able to start his, spread his teachings. So that is the Samma Sambuddha. And in the Buddha's time or in India, it's not easy to spread the religion. A lot of different yogis who can kind of like, sometimes you might see in documentary films, yogis can sit for days without eating, without breathing sometimes. So if you want to teach them, you need to be better than them. So the Samma Sambuddha have to fulfill all these other virtues or attain all these psychic abilities and so on. So once a person have all these qualities, then they're able to sort of teach and propagate. Okay, then the next quality, the next kind of enlightenment is the Pacceka Buddha, silent Buddha. So silent Buddha, almost the same, discover the truth by themselves when nobody else know how to reach enlightenment, self-awakened, but unable to teach. Unable to teach. Not because they're selfish, might be many factors. Probably they are born in the wrong era, the society at that time unable to accept their teachings. You tell them, hey, they're suffering, Four Noble Truths, they tell you, hey, rubbish. So they don't want to listen to you. So unable to teach. And the interesting fact, our historical Buddha almost became a silent Buddha, almost became a Pachika Buddha. After the Buddha got enlightened, he felt like not teaching. He felt like, yeah, this Dhamma too cheap already, too profound. Nobody can understand, right? They are beings with a lot of dust in their eyes. It will be very exhausting, very exhausting for the Buddha to teach. So he decided to just spend his time under the tree and just wait for his time to pass. But fortunately, there's this Brahma Sampati, there's this particular heavenly being that came down and invited the Buddha to teach and requested the Buddha 3 times. Now that there are people with little dust in their eyes and beseech the Buddha to teach. And because of that, then the Buddha kind of agreed. No, the Buddha also checked with his divine eye to see whether he's kind of correct. Then he found, there are some people who are, how do you call it, potential candidates for enlightenment, or potential people who can understand the teachings. So the Buddha agreed, accepted the invitation, and therefore we have Buddhism, right? So that's the backdrop. So silent Buddha, so the second kind of enlightenment, basically a person who reach enlightenment by themselves but unable to teach. And the third kind, hearer Buddhas, Sawaka Buddhas. So basically Sawaka Buddhas, they gain enlightenment when the teachings are still around. So that's why it's called hearer Buddhas. They need to hear, they need to receive the teachings, and then they reach enlightenment. So they're called they're awake, awakened. In a sense, they are considered self-awakened also because they need to practice themselves. Because nobody can get enlightened for you, right? If people can get enlightened for us, then all the Buddhas should have done it long ago, right? So no. So in a way, they need to put in effort themselves and realize themselves, but the methodology, the technique, the instructions have to come from a realized person. So if it comes to an age, a point when nobody knows the technique, it becomes just purely intellectual kind of Buddhism, then we can kind of like say that Buddhism is probably declining or almost going to get destroyed, kind of get disappear very soon. So we need the practical aspect. We need people to like sort of follow the precepts, who really practice the training, really meditate, experience some peace. Then that's how you kind of follow the teachings of the Buddha, right? And the Buddha mentioned before his passing, as long as people follow the Noble Eightfold Path, then the world will not be short of arahants, will not be short of these Sawaka Buddhas, these hearer Buddhas, right? So that is the kind of message of the Buddha. So as long as the teachings are still around, people follow the teachings, then there won't be short of realized practitioners. Okay, so anyway, I've covered the 3 kinds of enlightenment, and we talk about the next quality of the Buddha, consummate in knowledge and conduct. So that's the Vijjacharana Sampanno. So basically, you can say the Buddha is very knowledgeable. He's very not just knowledgeable in terms of his education. We know that the Buddha in his life as a prince received many tutors, special tutors, very top class tutors to teach him all kinds of subjects and manners of how to run a country. So he's very knowledgeable, not just that, but also right before his awakening, the moment before he got enlightened, he recalled all his past lives, or most of his past lives. It's mentioned he recalled 91 eons of his past lives. So that's how long he recalled his past life. So 91 eons is like very long time, right? So I can't even remember what happened a few years ago, but he can remember 91 eons. So that's lots of data. There's lots of memory and data. So modern scientists have talked about our DNA is a storage bank. DNA contains don't know how many, don't know, terabytes of whatever information, more than gigabytes. So one drop of DNA can contain many, many, many terabytes of information. So if a person can, recollect the past and able to access all the information, it may not use up the brain capacity. It's something deeper. Okay, so that is maybe for more mainstream science to research on. But anyway, the Buddha can recall 91 eons of past lives, so he can recall his time as a farmer, as a soldier, as a royalty, as a deva, as a heavenly being, as an animal, as a ghost, as a hell being. So he knows a lot of things, many, many kinds of information. So he's very knowledgeable. Well gone. So the Pali word is sugato. Sugato, well gone. So there are a few kinds of explanation. Basically, the Buddha is able to walk the talk. Whatever he teach, he experienced himself, is not speculation. So well gone, or probably another alternative explanation, he's a good speaker. Whatever he speaks, it's achievable, it's doable. Okay, an expert with regard to the world, or some versions say knower of worlds. Lokavidu, Sugato Lokavidu, Lokavidu, that means he knows all the worlds. Loka means worlds. So the Buddha is not just able to recall the different past lives of himself, but also past lives of other beings if he chooses to. He can look at, it's more like comparing data. So he compare data to see different past lives and understand karma, how it works. So you need to compare data to see whether it's true, not just his sample, but other sample, other beings. So not just that, he has also the divine eye to see the other realms. We can see the different heavenly realms, the ghosts, the hell realms, and so on. Not just that, he's able to teleport and go to those realms. He can go to the different heavenly realms mentioned in some suttas, able to converse with other heavenly beings. So he knows all the other worlds. Unexcelled as a trainer for those people fit to be tamed. Anuttara Purisa Dhammasarati. That means he trains people who want to be tamed. That means people who are willing to learn. So that's basically the first invitation of the Buddha, right? When the Brahma Sampati said, there are people with little dust in their eyes. So if there are people with lots of defilement, lots of dust in their eyes, unable to see the truth, and is not willing to learn, the Buddha is like, no, sorry, I won't waste my time on you. So some people think that Buddhism must teach, must like evangelize, must share the truth. The gift of the truth is the highest gift. And lots of people start spamming Dhamma quotes to you or forwarding lots of Dhamma videos to you. That's not the way. There is like a demand and supply. So when people are willing to learn, when they're sincere, they request, please share with me, why are you practicing this? They want to know, then you share. So people who are receptive. So these are the ideal candidates to kind of share the Dhamma, right? So like you all join this group because I presume you are willing to learn. If you're not willing, you're probably somewhere else, right? Okay, so this is the people fit to be tamed, the teacher of divine and human beings, Sata Deva Manusanam. So it's a teacher of devas, divine beings, Manusanam, and humans. So interesting. The Buddha only teach heavenly beings and humans. Somehow he didn't teach the animals, the ghosts, and the hell beings. So that one have potential market. So probably have the Tichang Wang Pusa and whatever, right? We have all those beings want to help. So basically, those beings are very hard to help or require alternative methods of helping. Like for example, at least in the Theravada teachings, hungry ghosts can be helped only through dedication of merits. Dedication of merits. That means you do something good, perform a good act, and then you think of them. Dedication of merits. Not transfer of merits. A lot of translators use transfer of merits. Then people think, okay, my karma can pass to you and can pass to the ghost. No, you have to purify yourself. So the ghosts, or these hungry ghosts, have basically what they do is when you dedicate to them, they will have to rejoice in your good act. So in that way, they create their own good karma. So that's called dedication of merit. I do this good deed for you, so they know, this person is thinking of me. I'm in this deprived state as a hungry ghost. So when they feel glad about it, when they kind of rejoice in your good act, then they kind of create the karma to escape from that hungry ghost realm, reborn somewhere else. So that is the way of helping. So if they are in suffering state, very hard to teach them. No, if they're always hungry, they're always either facing lots of difficulties. It is believed that when they put food in their mouth, it turns to fire, ashes, flame, blood, or whatever kind of feces, becomes inedible. So they're always facing very tormenting conditions. So when they are in great suffering, you go and try to teach them, okay, think of the Dhamma, think of impermanence and stuff like that. They can't get through. So in a way, you can bring forward to psychology. I'm not sure you heard of this Maslow's hierarchy of needs and wants. Maslow's hierarchy of needs and wants. So if people, so the lowest level or the majority of people will be thinking of survival, thinking of food, thinking of shelter, how to survive. And then probably the next level will be like, I don't know, probably peer support, emotional support. You need like friends and peers to keep you emotionally kind of satisfied. And the next level will be like achievement. You can become a top performer and stuff like that. So achievement, people aim for achievement. And the highest would be self-actualization. Self-actualization, things like probably like religious kind of philosophy and teachings, how to be selfless, how to understand the meaning of life and stuff like that. Self-actualization. So if people are like starving and fighting to survive, you tell them what's the meaning of life. No, it's not very practical for them, right? Most people would be like, no, feed me first. And we discuss later. So once they're probably contented, then might be possible to kind of teach them, right? Again, this is just it's a Western model. It's not perfect. There are people who are living in poverty conditions, probably in the Buddha's time, monks were in poverty, and they reach enlightenment. They have very little needs, So it's more a psychological kind of contentment. If they are contented with the food and lodgings, even though they are kind of malnutrition, they're very contented. They don't really need all these. They need mental sustenance. They need meditation to kind of like move on. Then no, there are different kinds of needs and wants. So different people have different kinds of aspiration, different kinds of expectations. Okay, so that covers human and divine. So again, not all divine beings want to be taught. Not all humans want to be taught. So one good example is like even the Buddha's disciples, not all of them want to learn the Dhamma. I think one classic case is this Venerable Devadatta. So Venerable Devadatta is the bad guy in Buddhism. Huh? He aimed to take over the Buddha's position and even want to assassinate the Buddha, want to kill the Buddha. No, wanted to cause, he created a schism in the Sangha. So, he also unable to learn anything beneficial, unable to move forward spiritually. So that is for humans, even the Buddha's time, not more about Deva. So divine beings, some people think divine beings in heaven should be purer than human, right? Should be able to to be peaceful. No. So in the scripture, mentioned there are many, many levels of heavenly beings. Some are always fighting, Some might war with each other. Some, one good case would be like Mara. Mara is the evil one in Buddhism. So he's the one that tried to prevent the Buddha from attaining enlightenment, right? So Mara also kind of like disturbed the Buddha for 7 years after Buddha got enlightened, keep on trying to dissuade him from teaching, create obstacles and hindrances for the Buddha. At times, when there's alms round, the Buddha go for alms round. He kind of sort of like manipulated the minds of the devotees not to give him food. So the Buddha came back empty-handed and hungry. Things like that. Also, Mara, he's a heavenly being, right? So he does that. So that's why for people who develop divine eye can be quite dangerous. They're unable to tell who's the good guy from the bad guy because devas all appear bright. That's why they're called devas, beings of light. All of them appear bright. All of them appear very majestic, and somehow they can shapeshift. So you won't know who is the good guy or bad guy. So they'll tell you, lots of things. So in the majority of the devas, for example, like the yakas and the nagas, yakas are like the dragons and the serpents. Nagas are the serpents and dragons. Yakas are the ogres and the orcs. So those beings sometimes are predatory in nature, so they feast on humans. Either feed on the flesh or feed on the life force. So these beings do exist. It's part of their so-called natural order, their food chain or the food cycle. So these beings, not all of them are kind to humans. Right? So the Buddha also the same thing. The Buddha is not able to teach everybody. Sometimes you might hear or read of the Buddha's story trying to tame certain dragon or tame certain yaka. The yaka want to challenge the Buddha. If you, why are you trespassing my territory? If you don't answer my question, I will throw you far side of the forest or whatever it is. So these yakas are beings of great might, being of great strength. So they can do such kind of things, and even threaten the Buddha. So not all beings want to learn. So you have to look at different conditions. So even heavenly beings and humans already face such difficulties. There's a small percentage easily sort of fit to be tamed or fit to learn the teachings. Not more about animals and other beings. Okay, awakened. Buddho, that's the Pali word, Buddho. So in the Thai tradition, they kind of shortcut You want to recollect the Buddha, you don't have to chant everything, right? You just recite one word, Buddho. Yeah, Buddho. And the last one is blessed, Bhagavati, right? Bhagava means, how do you call it? Very fortunate, very blessed. So that's the term. A person who has gone through many rounds of rebirths, accumulated lots of merits. He's born with the 32 features, 32 marks. So actually, nobody know how the Buddha looks like, because when the Buddha was around, he kind of forbid people to draw or carve his image. So the Buddha statues that we see right now are kind of like artist's impression of the Buddha. So the first kind of Buddha images that archaeologists kind of determined to be found are like 600 years after the Buddha's passing away. So when the Buddha was around, nobody knew how he looked like. So 600 years later, then the Greeks and the Gandharans are the first to carve the Buddha statues. Yeah? So you can find it in this Asian Civilization Museum. So they're called the Gandhara statues. So you can search that up. Okay, there's a question from the audience in the chat. May I know what is it regarding?
Monday, can you see the question?
Need to open the chat.
Yeah, okay. The question is, may I know what does Buddho mean? And not sure the correct spelling. Buddho.
Okay, Buddho means to awaken or the awakening. Yeah, so the word Buddha can be used as a noun or as a verb, as a quality. So in this case, the word Buddho is quality. So if a person is awake means they're free from greed, hatred, delusion. Their mind is very bright, awake. So that's the kind of meaning in mind we should have, the kind of perception we should have in mind when a person want to practice this Buddho kind of chanting. When a person want to practice meditating on Buddho, they should have this in mind. A lot of people do not have this in mind, and they start Buddho, they chant. If their intention is wrong, it may not produce the right kinds of results. In fact, all kinds of mantra chanting, regardless of tradition, if it's a short kind of chant, and regardless of religion even, if they chant, just that chant without combining with other kinds of meditation, without combining with the breath, without combining with other types of meditation, just purely the chant in the mind, you keep chanting, it can lead to also concentration, formless kind of concentration. So that was probably commonly used in the Buddha's time or before the Buddha's time. So it's a formless kind of concentration. So the Hindus also, they use it. So that's for the Buddha mantra chanting. But a person need to know the meaning, to have faith, to understand what they're chanting, to kind of increase the faith faculty. So if you know the meaning, then it will improve the wisdom faculty. Some people, they chant these chants, be it the full version, all the 9 qualities or just one quality, like the Thai tradition, just one quality. Be it the 9 quality or the one quality. Some people chant without knowing the meaning. They just memorize the sound, they just hear the tape recorder or the YouTube, the playlist, and they memorize the chant without reading the translation. So there are people who do that. Probably they go to temple, the monk just chant, you just follow them chant. So that could be just only the faith faculty, only the faith faculty without activating the understanding. Right. So right now, interestingly, within the faith faculty, you need to understand. You need to understand. Because in the Buddha's time, the Buddha is speaking in his language. In his language. So the listener will understand, the audience will understand what he's saying. So right now, over time, when we are sort of recollecting the teachings, we are chanting in the Pali language. Pali language. So in the past, most people would believe the Buddha would be speaking in Pali language, which nowadays a lot of scholars won't think so. The Buddha would probably be speaking the common language used by the people, probably Magadhi and a few mixture, maybe some Sanskrit and whatever. So that's like the languages that most of the people speak. In fact, Pali language is invented to codify the Theravada teachings, the Theravada scriptures. So that's the Pali language. So you can't really find any ethnic group, any group of people, or any tribes that speak Pali language. So it's not really a living language, it's just a language to preserve the scripture. Yeah? So it's probably only in the Pali colleges and universities that try to reverse engineer and try to make people learn the vocabulary, the grammar, and stuff like that, and try to reconstruct sentences. So that's more on the academic side. But in terms of realistic, on the ground up, I don't think there's anybody being found, like any ethnic group or tribe that speaks the Pali language. Yeah? So when the monks, especially in the Theravada tradition, or the devotees chant the Pali language, it's not the language used by the Buddha. It's not the language used by the Buddha. So we are chanting in a totally different language that the Buddha himself never spoke. And we are expected to understand. So that's the problem. So we're chanting some words, and if you do not have the translations, fortunately now most of the things are translated. But before these things were commonly, openly translated, people have to go and study Pali. So there was a movement once. People are encouraged to go to Pali colleges to study Pali to understand what they are chanting. So right now there are lots of international translators that kind of translate the teachings into common languages like English and Chinese and so on. So more people know the language. Know the chants in their own language. In their own language. So they don't have to, chant without knowing what they're chanting. Right? So imagine those days before these Pali chants were translated openly. A lot of people blindly chant. Blindly chant. And what happened, it becomes very superstitious. Because when Buddhism spread to various countries, the folk religion at the time were animism and spiritism. Doesn't matter which country, it can be Thailand, Tibet, or whatever it is. Animism and spiritism. So they have lots of incantations, spells and incantations. So when these chants were introduced to the people treat these chants as incantations and spells. Incantation and spell, like magic. So you can evidently find in the Thai yantras. That's what the Thai people did when they start to tattoo those yantras. They do this itipiso chanting, these 9 qualities in the reverse order. And they believe chanting the syllabus from back to front will give them powers, and back to front and front to back and stuff like that. So it is not understanding the meaning, but more like trying to fit the chant into the diagram, into the pictures and the diagrams, in the yantra diagram. So it becomes like more of like animistic or spiritism, which was not originally meant to be. So the teachings are meant to recollect recollect the qualities of the Buddha to instill faith in the Buddha. All right, so that's the 9 qualities. Okay, let's move on.
Bante, are you able to take one more question before we move on?
Okay, there's a question. Okay, let's.
Yeah. Okay, I read out. Good evening, Bante. For the sharing of merits, it seems like there is a common practice to delegate them to karmic debtors. If we need the recipients to rejoice with us, it seems sort of unlikely that these beings will be able to rejoice our good deeds, assuming they are at odds with us due to some past incidents. Sometimes even humans who are at odds sabo each other. So how can I reconcile this way of thinking?
Okay, yeah, this is a very good question. So there are many factors. So first is how much merit do you generate? If it's very meritorious, then the chances of influencing the other party would be much higher. If it's not very meritorious, it's like very mediocre or even demeritorious, you want to perform this charity because you're like being forced to or you're being obliged, so there's no willingness in doing the act of good or act of kindness, right? So the merit will be very like minimal or little. So it's like not negotiable. So again, and also depends on the other side, whether the other departed being, which realm are they reborn? If they are reborn as hungry ghosts, most probably they will want to receive these merits because they are in a desperate condition. It's like if a person is drowning, whoever throw a safety line, a lifeline, they will grab. No, they want to survive. They want to grab and want to keep themselves afloat. They don't want to drown. So the hungry ghost is something like that. They are in a state of torment, and the only avenue of help is through this dedication of merit. And if you want to talk about ghosts in general, in most cultures, the term ghosts can be a very different kind of definition from the Buddhist understanding of ghosts. Sometimes the ghosts can be the devas in the Buddhist kind of classification, things like earthbound spirits, tree spirits, mountain spirits, river spirits. So these are earthbound devas, earthbound heavenly beings, right? And these beings do cause trouble sometimes because usually they're very territorial, and they do have their temperament also. Yeah, so if you want to talk about if the departed are reborn in those realms, then they might sort of exact revenge. If, let's say, you've done something wrong to them in the past, they can be vengeful. So the only way is to negotiate, through negotiation. So the Buddhist or the Orthodox Buddhist method is through negotiation. That means oneself, we ourselves first must have this refuge in the triple gems, take refuge, and then observe the precepts well, be meritorious. Then we can tell those beings, if let's say you face harassment, like suddenly your house got things move and drop and whatever it is, if you face harassment by those unseen beings, you need to negotiate. Say first, okay, you are a disciple of the triple gems. So that's the first point, disciple of triple gems. And secondly, try not to fight with them. Try not to argue or fight with them. That's not the point. So things like exorcism comes from other practices, not from Buddhism. Buddhism, all the teachings is, at least in the Theravada side, is on negotiation, diplomatic negotiation. First, you tell them you're a devotee, disciple of triple gems. Number two, they are bosses. That means the heavenly kings, 4 heavenly kings, not the Mandopop 4 heavenly kings, not the Andy Lau and those people. 4 heavenly kings, those people in charge, the gods in charge of the yakas, nagas, Gandhabas, and Kumbhandanas, these 4 races. So most of these races are those earthbound spirits. So their kings, their bosses, are also faithful followers of the Triple Gem. So you must tell them that. And third point, because of this, please leave me alone. That's number 3. You have to ensure I do no harm to you, and please do not do any harm to me. So that's the third point, right? So that's the 3 main negotiating factors. If that still doesn't work, there is a very long negotiation. The full version will sort of recollect the 7 past Buddhas. And if that still doesn't work, you need to call upon the 4 heavenly kings. Recite the names of the 4 heavenly kings. They will come down and apprehend the troublemaker. That's a very long chant. You can find in the Attanatya Sutta. But in short, if you cannot recall this, just recollect the triple gems. Any fear in you, just think on the triple gems. Think on the Buddha. If the Buddha doesn't work, think on the Dhamma. If the Dhamma doesn't work, then think on the Sangha. So we'll go through the other 2 in probably future sessions. Right now, just cover the definition of this faith faculty. Does that answer your question? So dedicate merits, and most importantly, ask for forgiveness.
I think we have 3 more questions, but do you want to wait until the next round?
We'll answer them first.
Answer them first.
Yeah, we'll answer them first.
The next one is there's blind faith and true right faith. As Buddhists, how can we make sure that we are cultivating the faith correctly, that strengthen our practice?
Yeah, this is a very good question, right? So Buddhism actually doesn't encourage blind faith. So, but of course, not everybody can be discerning. There are people who approach Buddhism in a very critical point of view. So they investigate, they ask, they check out every information, whether it's correct first before they accept the teachings. So for those people are fine. They won't fall into the blind faith category. So for those who are maybe not too investigative in nature, whatever you say, they just accept. So for those who are like blind faith, I think a lot depends on karma. Their karma, if they have good karma, one may start off with blind faith first along the way. If they practice, they see the results for themselves. They become kinder persons, they become less cruel, less angry, more patient. That means they're on the right track. So they see for themselves. So the faith, the blind faith, will slowly turn into experiential faith or even confidence. So that is the route. But if, let's say, they start with blind faith, they meet the wrong kind of people, or sometimes they go into sort of cults, they use fear to control people. Probably, usually the case is just they want money, more money, or they want manpower to people to execute certain kind of tasks. Then it can be quite problematic. Yeah. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, Bhante, the next question.
Yep.
Bhante, there are people who transfer merits to other. Oh no, this one. Oh yeah, there are other people who transfer merits to other beings. Do the other beings receive the merits? And people also delegate merits to their own Buddhist goals. Buddhist goals like the Buddhist, like Buddhahood or Nibbana. Are these also practice of the Theravada tradition?
Yeah, although it can be found in like more recent or modern post-canonical version of Theravada Buddhism, we dedicate marriage to our parents, our teachers, to the guardian devas and whatever not. But interestingly, in the original or older Theravada scriptures, it is mentioned only the hungry ghost can receive merits. can receive your dedication. The other beings, they cannot. Yeah. So even though we may dedicate to like, I don't know, maybe heavenly beings and stuff like that, I think it's more like encouragement. It's like a feel nice thing for them. Okay, those humans are acknowledging our work. Probably more like we are doing a bit of cheerleading and acknowledging for them. Um, I think it's harmless to dedicate to all beings. It's fine. It's nothing wrong. It won't deplete your merits. You can dedicate as much as possible, all classes of beings, make aspirations, make vows. That's fine. No worries, no issues.
Next question. Merits are immaterial, at least to the human vision. So unless the hungry ghost can sense the merits, how are they to know when to rejoice?
Yeah, like because the mind is a very powerful thing. It kind of transcends time and space even to a certain degree. Yeah, so there's the power of the mind. So when we think of something, again, this is a bit of occult knowledge. Um, okay, we talk about quantum science. Quantum science. Modern quantum physicists are able to conduct this experiment where they get this particle, a very small particle. I do not know what is it called. It can be an electron or whatever it is. And they're able to split into two. From the same particle, they split into two, and they're able to shoot it into two very far directions, far, far away from each other. And the experiment was to see whatever being done to one particle can affect the other, So they found out, hey, it's done. It's possible. Whatever thing you do to one particle, the other particle far, far away will reciprocate. Yeah, so this is the so-called quantum physicist point of view. So in a way, all things are kind of interconnected once you are able to sort of like have a kind of connection. So in this way, there's a blood and energy connection in terms of like relatives. So whenever you dedicate marriage to your past relatives, all the DNA, our DNA, there is a connection. Our gene pool, there is a kind of physical kind of connection to them. So it will help them to a certain degree. All right. So this is like my version of explaining. Yeah. So I need to
Okay.
mention occult. Occult will be like spiritism. Maybe you might heard things of like black magic and stuff like that. Sometimes people will want to take a piece of your item, maybe your hair or your clothing, and then people will curse and swear and whatever, and it will affect the other party. It will affect the other party. So in the age of social media, if let's say you are too popular, if you are kind of unpopular, let's say you done something wrong, and or whatever reason you become unpopular, and a lot of people dislike you, and they look at your image and cast a lot of these curse and swear on you, it will affect you. So that's why a lot of people have mental health issues. Because this mental energy shoot at you. Even though the person can be different countries, miles, thousands of miles apart, but because they look at their their picture, and they have a dislike, then it will mentally affect them at the energy level. Yeah. So that's for the negative side. So you don't want to talk about positive side. That's how probably Reiki works, energy healing, right? They send positive energy. The master will have to visualize the person and send the energy. But again, this is beyond the field of Theravada scripture. So all these are other kinds of worldly knowledge. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question.
Bante, there's one last question here. Okay. Hi, Bante. I take it on faith that there's Amitabha Buddha and his Pure Land. It seems to be blind faith since I can't prove or experience it now. Do you agree that this is a type of blind faith?
Okay, so whatever in the next life, we won't know, right? So earlier on, we chanted the 6 qualities of the Dhamma to be seen here and now without delay. So if let's say whatever chant you're practicing, if it can make your mind more peaceful, more calm, um, clearer, then that will be the here and now result. Right? So this is the here and now Dhamma that the Buddha kind of promised. Anything about the next life or whatever, yeah, these are dharmas also, but not the here and now dharmas. All right. So the Buddha give example. No? There's a forest. He was walking in the forest with all his disciples, all the monks, and suddenly he picked up a handful of leaves on the ground, and he was asking his disciples, which quantity is more of leaves? The one in his hand or the one in the forest, the ground all over the forest? Which one is more? Of course, the one on the floor, right? The floor has so much more leaves. So the Buddha said the same thing. The things they teach is just like this, the handful, 4 noble truths, that's all. There are many, many kinds of knowledges around in the forest, lots of kind of leaves, lots of knowledges all around. So nowadays the science talk about multiverse lah, and all this kind of thing. So in the ancient days, before sci-fi and science popularized the idea of multiverse, probably we have the Western Pure Land, right? So Western Pure Land, they believe there's another kind of world where the Buddha is still alive, and those who have faith in him, they practice and meet certain conditions, then they'll be reborn in that Pure Land. So we won't know because that's his afterlife. So the here and now that we're talking about is the 4 noble truths. Whatever you chant, does it reduce your greed and anger? If let's say the more you practice, the more impatient you get, the more frustrated you get, that means something is wrong. If you practice, you have the right contemplation, the lore of the Buddha or whatever Deva or Bodhisattva it is, the lore is to help you inspire faith, this faith faculty. If whatever faith you have, you do your practice, able to calm the mind, able to reach and enter concentration, then that's the here and now Dhamma. That's the here and now Dhamma that the Buddha promised. So right now, even as I'm talking about this, I have no idea how the Buddha behaved. I have not seen the Buddha before, even the historical Buddha, right? Even in our own world, don't talk about the next world. So same thing, out of faith, we kind of practice and we see the results here and now. If here and now we can experience certain peace or certain spiritual joy or happiness, then there will be the confidence. This faith will develop into this confidence, and then you can, this incentive for you to move on. All right.
Sorry, Bante, I missed out one question.
Okay.
Okay, what does it mean for a people who have conviction towards the triple gems, fear of loss, his or her own conviction in Buddhism? Can Bante explain the reason why, or just merely out of fear of loss for this condition?
Fear. So if a person, I would say there are many different levels of practice. So if let's say a person who has faith but haven't experienced the Dhamma yet, so there is a probability of fear of loss of faith or even conversion. So that's like the vulnerable group. Right? But if a person already has seen the Dhamma, they have faith in the triple gem, and they have experienced the Dhamma, the benefit has done, then, or even talk about even experiencing stream entry, then they have no more doubt. No more doubt. That means their faith is like kind of cemented. Yeah. So these are different categories of people. So I would say for those who let's say maybe the blind faith or those who haven't experienced the Dhamma, uh, probably karmic conditions, many karmic conditions, what kind of peers they're around, what kind of organization they're in. They may be officially, politically, they call themselves a Buddhist, but if they're in an environment where, I don't know, maybe lots of scandals take place, it's a Buddhist temple, right? It's an officially recognized Buddhist temple. The people there are unkind, lots of unwholesome people around. Definitely, they won't stick to the faith. So I would say different conditions. Yeah.
But that's all. That's all we have in the chat
Okay.
box.
All right. So we can move on. 15 minutes. Okay. Next slide. What is the faculty of persistence? So this is the energy or effort. There is a case where a monk or a disciple of the noble ones keeps his persistence aroused for abandoning unskillful mental qualities and taking on skillful mental qualities. He is steadfast, solid in his effort, not shirking his duties with regard to skillful mental qualities. Okay, so if a person considers oneself as a Buddhist, that means they take refuge in the triple gem. So it is their duty to purify the mind. I cannot say I want to be Buddhist, but I still want to get angry, indulge in all the wrong mental activity. I don't want to improve. Then become Buddhist for what, right? So that you should look for improvement, at least body, speech, and mind. So this is the three avenues of creating karma: body, speech, and mind. So mental qualities is mentioned here. So there are four. First one, he generates desire, endeavors, arouses persistence, upholds and exerts his intention for the sake of non-arising of evil, and skillful qualities that have not yet arisen. So this is the first quality. And the second quality, for the sake of abandoning of evil, and skillful qualities that have arisen. Okay, so the first two qualities deal with unskillful or unwholesome mental qualities such as greed, anger, jealousy, cruelty, so on and so forth. So if these qualities have not arise, do not let it arise. So that's the first right effort. Second right effort means if it already arises, let's say you get angry, you get frustrated, then you should try your best to overcome it. Try to abandon it. So that's the second right effort. Okay, now we move on to next two, got to do with positive qualities. For the sake of arising of skillful qualities that have not yet arisen. And number four, for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, development, and culmination of skillful qualities that have arisen. So it's the same. So if let's say you do not have skillful qualities such as loving kindness, generosity, wisdom, so on and so forth, then try to develop them. Try to develop, try to make them arise. And number four, if they are already there, then you maintain and improve it further. So that's the four right efforts. All right. So it's called Samma Vayamo. Samma Vayamo. That's the Pali word for right effort. And a lot of times, if a person just do for show, let's say meditation time, they just sit, but end up they're sleeping, or they come to a temple every week just because it's an obligation to show face. Yeah, I'm a devoted Buddhist, I show face in temple. So if it's just to show face only, just for wayang only, we call this wayang samo, not samma wayamo. It's called wayang samo. Wayang means to put on a show. Yeah? So wayang samo. So please have samma wayamo, skillful qualities, real inner transformation, real development of good qualities, and removal of bad qualities. So that is real practice. If you do not practice this, then everything is just a form, just a show. Right? Any bowing, any chanting, any meditation, any act of charity, without proper kind of contemplation, without good intentions, then it's just for show. Yeah. So please do not do things for show. So this is the important part. Persistence. So some people say, I practice for decades, no results. Then you really need to check your Sama Vayamo. Yeah, really need to check whether you got put in the right kind of effort. Yeah, it's not the time you spend, but the quality. Yeah, it's not the quantity, but the quality. What kind of reflection you're using. Okay, next. Okay, then the third one, right? Mindfulness. There's a case where a monk or a disciple of the noble ones is mindful, highly meticulous, remembering and able to call in mind even things that were done and said long ago. Okay, then the first one, it remains focused on bodily in and on itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. Number 2, on the feelings. And number 3, on the mind. And number 4, on mental qualities. So these are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So interestingly, this mindfulness has 2 aspects. So the 4 points that we mentioned is the definition of right mindfulness, right kind of mindfulness that lead to spiritual liberation. Whereas the first part, memory, that is, we call this a worldly or a mundane kind of function, may not equivalent to spiritual kind of right mindfulness. For example, a person can be very good in memory, but always hold on to this person owe me how much money, or this person done done something wrong to me before, right? And remember but cannot let go. So that is a mundane kind of task, right? Very meticulous, very pay attention to detail, very careful, right? So that is a mundane skill set. May not equal to right mindfulness, but important, is a good skill to have to help you in all aspects of life. Mundane skill, if let's say your livelihood requires you to be careful, to be meticulous, to be, pay attention to detail, very useful, right? But you want to talk about spiritual practice, also useful. But without good memory, is it possible to have right mindfulness? So we'll discuss it in further sessions. So this is food for thought. Okay, next slide. And the next one is right concentration. Okay, we have a question. Perhaps Louis can read out.
Yeah, that's a question. Did the Buddha pass down a systematic way to abandon evil, example, anger, ill view, conceit, etc.? I believe Buddhists who practice for a long time but didn't make much progress is usually because such a way or technique is not widely known.
Yeah, okay. So actually the technique or the secret ingredient, the Buddha's formula, is out in plain sight. It's called the Noble Eightfold Path. A lot of times people don't really follow the protocol, the Noble Eightfold Path protocol. So they come and attend the Dhamma talk. So the Dhamma teacher, like right now, say something, then you'll be like, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. So you agree for one moment. Yeah, you agree. Yeah, makes sense. Then the next moment, you start to daydream again. Mind back to square one, start to worry this, worry that. Later on, what to do, what kind of TV program you're watching, what kind of supper you want to go and take. So lots of distraction. So let's go to the previous slide. So the right effort actually requires every moment, right effort and right mindfulness. Yeah, so we'll go through this theoretically in detail, probably in the next few lessons. But in short, right mindfulness means in all activities, standing, sitting, walking, lying down, when you're eating, when you're talking, when you're doing work, when you're playing with your children, you can also contemplate correctly, whatever meditation theme you're doing. But in this specific case of mindfulness, contemplate on impermanence. So that is the instruction. Yeah. So if you follow the instruction, then you should see improvement. But the thing is, if you don't follow the instruction, like what I gave the example earlier on, you just just attend the religious service once a week, maybe for a few moments, you generate a few good karmas. Then the next few moments is like, oh, mind back to square one, right? So the Buddha gave, I give another example. In the Buddha's time, the Buddha is asking his disciples, how often do you contemplate on death? So there is a meditation practice to contemplate on death. Not to look forward to die, is to is a reality check to say, okay, one day, no, I will go through this phase. So it's a reality check. So it is a kind of meditation practice to arouse effort in your practice and to promote diligence. Okay, so one of the disciples mentioned every year, my birthday that time lah, so I get 1 year closer to death. Or some people, New Year uh, resolution, because just several days ago is end of last year. So every year, yeah, I'm closer to death and make a New Year wish. Then the Buddha said, no, not good enough, too slow. That's not good enough rate of reflection. Then the next student say every month, every new and full moon, that's the holy days, right? Every new and full moon. The Buddha said, no, not good enough, too slow. And another student said, every week, every quarter moon, that's every week. So it's like, we attend classes every week. And the Buddha said, no, not good enough. And another one said, every day when I wake up, it's like I'm born. When I lie down to sleep, it's like passing away. And the Buddha still said, not good enough. Not good enough. Then the last student, the model student, he answered, every in and out breath, every time breathe in, one moment closer to death. Every time breathe out, one moment closer to death. Then the Buddha said, yes, this is the kind of right effort if you really want to see progress. Right? Why is it so? Because the mind is always drifting off. There's lots of old habits. It's like past karmas. The Buddha always give a metaphor of crossing the other shore. There's lots of currents, lots of waves. How many times do you row the raft? Every time you contemplate impermanence, it's like rowing the raft once. And once you stop and start to daydream, it's like the waves and the currents dragging your boat or your raft all over the place again. So you cannot reach your destination. If you contemplate once a year, you row the boat once a year, row once only. Then the rest of the year is like all over the place in the ocean. You cannot reach your destination, right? And same thing for every day. If you row once in the morning, row once at night, still cannot reach. You know how much currents we have? Unless you are super gifted, super gifted, super meritorious, like some cases in the Buddha's time, maybe one of the case would be this Bahiya. Bahiya is ascetic, but he himself also need to practice very hard in that lifetime as an ascetic. Then he travel to go and see the Buddha. And the Buddha is in his arms round, no, cannot give him teaching. But this guy like begging and begging and begging the Buddha more than 3 times. So the Buddha, his protocol is after 3 times he must answer. So the Buddha see him so sincere, okay, and then he answer. Okay, if you see your 6 senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, as the process as such, without the eye in there, seeing is just seeing, hearing is just hearing, basically observe the impermanence of these 6 senses, you will understand truth. And right there and then, he got enlightened, become Arahant, fully enlightened being. Don't have to sit down cross-legged to meditate. Just listening, kneeling and putting his hand like that, become enlightened. And another story, this Venerable Sivali, the monk foremost in receiving gifts. So for those who come to Palelai temple, you see a monk with an umbrella. So that's Venerable Sivali. We have, this statue, right? The monk holding an umbrella. So a depiction of Arahant Sivali, the monk foremost in receiving gifts. Because his past lives, he's done so much charity that he won't ever go hungry. Always have enough food, enough clothing, enough everything. But before he become a monk, he requests ordination. And the Buddha asked Venerable Sariputta to shave his hair. So Venerable Sariputta asked him to contemplate on the impermanent nature of the hair. So Venerable Sariputta shaved the hair falling down. He contemplated impermanence. After finishing shaving his head, he became an Arahant. Just by reflecting on impermanence of the hair, become Arahant, fully enlightened. Don't have to sit down cross-legged. Don't have to meditate. Huh? So that's for some people. Unless you are super talented, then you don't have to row the boat so many times. Other than that, you have to keep rowing the boat. The Buddha mentioned in this Satipatthana Sutta, this 4 foundation of mindfulness discourse. If a person constantly put in effort as long as they are awake, every moment as long as they're awake, always mindful of impermanence, 7 years to experience either become an Arahant or Anagami, or 1 step closer to enlightenment. So this is the Buddha's guarantee, 7 years maximum. If you're super talented, maybe 7 days. All right, so that's the teaching. But if you're not aiming that high, in the Theravada school nowadays, some people just aim for stream entry. Stream entry, don't aim too high, stream entry. I will say aim high. In case you don't reach the goal, at least you got something to fall on. So aim higher. Or you want to aim whatever it is, right? So now it's 9:30. Hopefully I answered the question. So I think we don't delay the time of those who want to go back. So we are going to carry on the next session, I think next Tuesday. I think total there are 2 months of this program. So I don't want to use up the content too much. So we're going to break up into
What day is on Thursday?
Huh?
Thursday.
Sorry, Thursday. Sorry, Thursdays. Okay, so it's on Thursdays. Okay, so we'll see you next Thursday, right? Next Thursday,
Yes, next Thursday.
Okay, next lesson next Thursday.